Stefan Uroš IV Dušan, known as Stefan Dušan the Mighty, was the king of Serbia from the 8th of September 1331 and emperor of the Serbs and Greeks from the 16th of April 1346 until his death. Dušan conquered a large part of southeast Europe, becoming one of the most powerful monarchs of the era. He enacted the constitution of the Serbian Empire, known as Dušan's Code, perhaps the most important literary work of medieval Serbia. Dušan promoted the Serbian Church from an archbishopric to a patriarchate, finished the construction of the Visoki Dečani monastery, and founded the Saint Archangels Monastery, among others. Under his rule, Serbia reached its territorial, political, economic, and cultural peak. Dušan died in 1355, seen as the end of resistance against the advancing Ottoman Empire and the subsequent fall of the Eastern Orthodox Church in the region. Background: in 1314, Serbian king Stefan Milutin quarreled with his son, Stefan Dušanski. Milutin sent Dušanski to Constantinople to have him blinded, though he was never totally blinded. Dušanski wrote to Danilo, the bishop of Hum, asking him to intervene with his father. Danilo wrote to Archbishop Nicodemus of Serbia, who spoke with Milutin and persuaded him to recall his son. In 1320, Dušanski was permitted to return to Serbia and was given the appanage of Budimlja, while his half-brother, Stefan Constantine, held the province of Zeta. Milutin became ill and died on the 29th of October 1321, and Constantine was crowned king. Civil war erupted immediately, as Dušanski and his cousin, Stefan Vladislav II, claimed the throne. Constantine refused to submit to Dušanski, who then invaded Zeta, defeating and killing Constantine. Dušanski was crowned king on the 6th of January 1322 by Nicodemus, and his son, Stefan Dušan, was crowned young king. Dušanski later granted Zeta to Dušan, indicating him as the intended heir. In the meantime, Vladislav II mobilized local support from Rudnik, the former appanage of his father, Stefan Dragutin. Vladislav proclaimed himself king, and he was supported by the Hungarians, consolidating control over his lands and preparing for battle with Dušanski. As was the case with the fathers, Serbia was divided by the two independent rulers. In 1322 and 1323, Ragusan merchants freely visited both lands. In 1323, war broke out between Dušanski and Vladislav. Rudnik had fallen to Dušanski by the end of 1323, and Vladislav appeared to have fled north. Vladislav was defeated in battle in late 1324 and fled to Hungary, leaving the Serbian throne to Dušanski as undisputed king of all Serbian and maritime lands. Biography. Youth and usurpation. Dušan was the eldest son of King Stefan Dušanski and Theodora Smilets, the daughter of Emperor Smilets of Bulgaria. He was born circa 1308 in Serbia, but with the exile of his father in 1314, the family lived in Constantinople until 1320, when his father was allowed to return. In Constantinople he learned Greek, gained an understanding of Byzantine life and culture, and became acquainted with the Byzantine Empire. He was more a soldier than a diplomat. In his youth he fought exceptionally in 2 battles. In 1329 he defeated the Bosnian band Stefan II Kotromanic, and in 1330 the Bulgarian Emperor Michael III Shishman in the Battle of Velbaj. Dušanski appointed his nephew Ivan Stephen to the throne of Bulgaria in August 1330. Dekanski's decision not to attack the Byzantines after the victory at Velbozhd, when he had an opportunity, resulted in the alienation of many nobles, who sought to expand to the south. By January or February 1331, Dušan was quarreling with his father, perhaps pressured by the nobility. According to contemporary pro-Dušan sources, evil advisers turned Dekanski against his son, and he decided to seize and exclude Dušan from his inheritance. Dekanski sent an army into Zeta against his son. The army ravaged Skadar, but Dušan had crossed the Bojana River. A brief period of anarchy took place in parts of Serbia before father and son concluded peace in April 1331. 3 months later, Dekanski ordered Dušan to meet him. Dušan feared for his life and his advisers persuaded him to resist, so Dušan marched from Skadar to Neredimlia, where he besieged his father. Dekanski fled, and Dušan captured the treasury and family. He then pursued his father, catching up with him at Petric. On the 21st of August 1331, Dekanski surrendered, and on the advice or insistence of Dušan's advisers, he was imprisoned. Dušan was crowned king of all Serbian and maritime lands in the first week of September. The civil war had prevented Serbia from aiding Ivan Stephen and Anna Nida in Bulgaria, who were deposed in March 1331. Taking refuge in the mountains, Ivan Alexander of Bulgaria feared Serbia as the situation had settled, and he immediately sought peace with Dušan. Dušan wanted to move against richer Byzantium. The two made peace and an alliance in December 1331, accepting Ivan Alexander as ruler. It was sealed with the marriage of Dušan and Helena, the sister of Ivan Alexander. Personal traits. Contemporary writers described Dušan as unusually tall and strong, the tallest man of his time, very handsome, and a rare leader full of dynamism, quick intelligence, and strength, bearing a kingly presence. According to the contemporary depictions, he had dark hair and brown eyes. In adult age he grew beard and longer hair. Early reign Serbia made some raids into Macedonia in late 1331, but a planned major attack on Byzantium was delayed as Dušan had to suppress revolts in Zeta in 1332. Dušan's ingratitude toward those who had aided his rise, the Zatan nobility, may have been neglected. The promised reward and greater influence may have been the cause of the rebellion, which was suppressed in the course of 1332. Dušan began to fight against the Byzantine Empire in 1334, and warfare continued with interruptions of various duration until his death in 1355. Twice he became involved in larger conflicts with the Hungarians, but these clashes were mostly defensive. Dušan's armies were initially defeated by Charles I of Hungary's 80,000-strong royal armies in Šumadija in 1336. Then, as the Hungarians advanced deeper into the hilly areas, Dušan's cavalry launched an attack resulting in a Serbian victory, and the Hungarians were expelled. Charles I was wounded by an arrow but survived. As a result, the Hungarians lost Makva and Belgrade. Dušan then focused his attention on the internal affairs of his country, writing, in 1349, the first statute book of the Serbs. To the west, Dušan scored victories over Hungarian leader Louis the Great that gave him Belgrade, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and his coins were minted at Katero. Dušan was also successful against Louis' vassals. He defeated the armies of the Croatian Ban and the forces of Hungarian voivodes. He was at peace with Bulgaria, who even helped him on several occasions, and he is said to have visited Ivan Alexander at his capital. Bulgaria became a Serbian vassal in 1331, a situation that lasted until 1365. Dušan exploited the civil war in the Byzantine Empire between the regent of the minor emperor John V Palaeologos Anna of Savoy, and his father's general John Cantacuzene. Dušan and Ivan Alexander picked opposite sides in the conflict but remained at peace with each other, taking advantage of the Byzantine civil war to secure gains for themselves. Dušan's systematic offensive began in 1342, and in the end he conquered all Byzantine territories in the Western Balkans as far as Kavala, except for the Peloponnesus and Thessaloniki, which he could not conquer because his fleet was too small. There has been speculation that Dušan's ultimate goal was no less than to conquer Constantinople and replace the declining Byzantine Empire with a united Orthodox Greco-Serbian Empire under his control. In May 1344, his commander Prelude was stopped at Stefanina by a Turkic force of 3,100. The Turks won the battle, but the victory was not enough to thwart the Serbian conquest of Macedonia. In 1343, Dušan added of Romans to his self-styled title King of Serbia, Albania and the coast. In 1345 he began calling himself Tsar, equivalent of emperor, as attested in charters to two Athonite monasteries, one from November 1345 and the other from January 1346, and around Christmas 1345 at a council meeting in Sarres, which was conquered on the 25th of September 1345, he proclaimed himself Tsar of the Serbs and Romans. Imperial coronation and autocephaly of the Serbian Church on the 16th of April 1346. Dušan convoked a huge assembly at Skopje, attended by the Serbian Archbishop Jonikić II, the Archbishop of Ohrid Nikolai I, the Bulgarian Patriarch Simeon, and various religious leaders of Mount Athos. The assembly and clerics agreed upon, and then ceremonially performed, the raising of the autocephalous Serbian archbishopric to the status of Serbian Patriarchate. The archbishop from then on was titled Serbian Patriarch, although some documents called him Patriarch of Serbs and Greeks, with the seat at the monastery of Peć. The first Serbian Patriarch Jonikić II solemnly crowned Dušan as emperor and autocrat of Serbs and Romans. Dušan had his son crowned King of Serbs and Greeks, giving him nominal rule over the Serbian lands, and although Dušan was governing the whole state, he had special responsibility for the Roman, i.e., Byzantine lands. A further increase in the Byzantinization of the Serbian court followed, particularly in court ceremonial and titles. As emperor, Dušan could grant titles only possible as an emperor. In the years that followed, Dušan's half-brother Simeon Uroš and brother-in-law Jovan Asen became despots. Jovan Oliver already had the despot title granted to him by Andronikos III. His brother-in-law Dejan Dragus and Branko Miladinović were granted the title of Sebastocrat, or the military commanders Prelude and Vojina received the title of Caesar. The raising of the Serbian Patriarch resulted in the same spirit as bishoprics became metropolitans, as for example the Metropolitanate of Skopje. The Patriarchate took over sovereignty on Mount Athos and the Greek archbishoprics under the rule of the Constantinople Patriarchate. For those acts he was excommunicated by the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople in 1350. Epirus and Thessaly. Faced with Dušan's aggression, the Byzantines sought allies in the Ottoman Turks, whom they brought into Europe for the first time. The first conflict between the Serbs and the Turks on Balkan soil, at Stefanina in 1344, ended unfavorably for the Serbs. In 1348 Dušan conquered Epirus, Acarnania, and Thessaly. He appointed Simeon Uroš as despots of Epirus and Thessaly, and he named Vojina as Caesar of Drama. Once Dušan conquered Epirus and Thessaly, he sought to obtain Constantinople. To acquire the city, he needed a fleet. Knowing that fleets of southern Serbian Dalmatian towns were not strong enough to overcome Constantinople, he opened negotiations with Venice, with which he maintained fairly good relations. Venice feared a reduction of privileges in the empire if Serbs became the masters of Constantinople over the weakened Byzantines. But if the Venetians had allied with Serbia, Dušan would have examined existing privileges. Once he became master of all Byzantine lands, the Venetians would have gained privileges. But Venice chose to avoid a military alliance. While Dušan sought Venetian aid against Byzantium, the Venetians sought Serbian support in the struggle against the Hungarians over Dalmatia. When sensing that Serbian aid would result in a Venetian obligation to Serbia, Venice politely turned down Dušan's offers of help. While Dušan launched the Bosnian campaign, Cantacuzenios tried to regain lands Byzantiums had lost. In his support, the Constantinopolitan Patriarch Kallistos excommunicated Dušan in order to discourage the Greek population in Dušan's Greek provinces from supporting the Serbian administration and thereby assist the Cantacuzenios campaign. The excommunication did not stop Dušan's relations with Mount Athos, which still addressed him as emperor, though rather as emperor of Serbs than emperor of Serbs and Greeks. Cantacuzenios raised a small army and took the Chalcidic peninsula, then Veria and Vodin. Veria was the richest town in the Botia region. Dušan had earlier replaced many Greeks with Serbs, including a Serb garrison. However, the remaining locals were able to open the gates for Cantacuzenios in 1350. Vodin resisted Cantacuzenios but was taken by assault. Cantacuzenios then marched toward Thessaly but was stopped at Servia by Caesar Prelub and his army of 500 men. The Byzantine force retired to Veria, and the aiding Turk contingent went off plundering, reaching Skopje. Once news of the Byzantine campaign reached Dušan in Hum, he quickly reassembled his forces from Bosnia and Hum and marched for Thessaly. War with the Bosnian Principality. Dušan evidently wanted to expand his rule over the provinces that had earlier been in the hands of Serbia, such as Hum, which was annexed by the Hungarian protege and Bosnian Ban Stefan II Kotromanic in 1326. In 1329, Ban Stefan II launched an attack on Lord Vitomir, who held Travunia and Konavla. The Bosnian army was defeated at Pribojska Banja by Dušan when he was still young king. The Ban soon took over Nevesinj and the rest of Bosnia. Peter Toljenović, the lord of seaside Hum, and a distant relative of Dušan, sparked a rebellion against the new ruler, but he was soon captured and died in prison. In 1350, Dušan attacked Bosnia, seeking to regain the previously lost land of Hum and stop raids on his tributaries at Konavla. Venice sought a settlement between the two but failed. In October he invaded Hum, with an army said to be of 80,000 men, and successfully occupied part of the disputed territory. According to Albany, Dušan had secretly been in contact with various Bosnian nobles, offering them bribes for support. Many nobles, chiefly of Hum, were ready to betray the Ban, such as the Nikolic family, which was kin to the Nemanjic dynasty. The Bosnian Ban avoided any major confrontation and did not meet Dušan in battle. He instead retired to the mountains and made small hit-and-run actions. Most of Bosnia's fortresses held out, but some nobles submitted to Dušan. The Serbs ravaged much of the countryside. With one army they reached Duvna and Cetin, another reached Krk, on which lay Nin, and another took Imotski and Novi, where they left garrisons and entered Hum. For this position of strength, Dušan tried to negotiate peace with the Ban, sealing it by the marriage of Dušan's son Uroš with Stephen's daughter Elizabeth, who would receive Hum as her dowry, restoring it to Serbia. The ban was not willing to consider this proposal. Dušan may have also launched the campaign in order to aid his sister, Jelena, who married Miladin III Subic of Omis Klis and Skraden. In 1347, Miladin died from Black Death in 1348, and Jelena sought to maintain the rule of the cities for herself and her son. She was challenged by Hungary and Venice, so the dispatch of Serbian troops to Western Hum and Croatia may have been for her aid, as operations in this region were unlikely to help Dušan conquer Hum. If Dušan had intended to aid Jelena, rising trouble in the east precluded this. death.Dušan had grand intentions to capture and hold Hum, Belgrade, Makva, Durrës, Philippopolis, Adrianople, Thessalonica, and Constantinople, and to place himself at the head of a great crusading army to drive the Muslim Turks from Europe. His premature death opened Serbia and the rest of the Balkans to Turkish invasion and Turkish rule until the early 20th century. While mounting a crusade against the Turks, he fell ill and died of a fever at Devil on the 20th of December 1355. He was buried in his foundation, the monastery of the Holy Archangels near Prizren. His empire slowly crumbled. His son and successor Stefan Uroš IV could not maintain the empire. Several regional feudal families increased the power, although nominally acknowledging Uroš IV as emperor. Simeon Uroš, Dušan's half-brother, had proclaimed himself emperor after the death of Dušan, ruling a large area of Thessaly and Epirus, which he had received from Dušan earlier. Today Dušan's remains are in the Church of St. Mark in Belgrade. Dušan is the only monarch of the Nemanjić dynasty who has not been canonized as a saint. Religious activity. Much like his ancestors, Emperor Dušan was very active in renovating churches and monasteries, and also for founding new ones. First, he cared for the monasteries in which his parents were buried. Both the Banjska Monastery, built by King Milutin, where his mother was buried, and the monastery of Visoki Dečani, an endowment of his father, were generously looked after. The monastery was built for 8 years, and it is certain that the emperor's role in the building process was huge. Between 1337 and 1339, the emperor became ill, and he gave his word that if he would survive, he would build a church and monastery in Jerusalem. At the time, there was one Serbian monastery in Jerusalem, dedicated to Archangel Michael, and a number of Serbian monks at the Sinai Peninsula. His greatest endowment was the Saint Archangels Monastery, located near the town of Prizren, in which he was originally buried. Dušan gave many possessions to this monastery, including the forest of Prizren, which was supposed to be a special property of the monastery where all precious goods and relics were to be stored. His son, Stefan Uroš IV, did not make peace with the Constantinopolitan Patriarch. The first initiative was made by Despot Uglješa in 1368, which resulted that the areas under his rule were restored to Constantinople. The final initiative for reconciliation between the churches came from Prince Lazar in 1375. There is no evidence of an existing cult of Emperor Dušan in the decades after his death. Dušan's charter to Ragusa served as a statute in the future trade between Serbia and Ragusa, and its regulations were deemed inviolable. Emperor Dušan's legacy was esteemed in Ragusa. Later folk tradition in Serbia included various attitudes toward Dušan, mostly negative, made under the influence of the church policy with the raising of the Serbian Archbishopric to a patriarchate. Serious changes in the organization of the church followed. Jernikic II became patriarch. Bishoprics were raised to metropolitanates, and new territories of the Ohrid Archbishopric and Ecumenical Constantinople were added to the jurisdiction of the Serbian Church. The Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople had Dušan excommunicated in 1350, although this did not affect the religion religious organization. Under Serbian jurisdiction came one of the foremost centers of spirituality, Mount Athos. As of November 1345, the Knight monks accept his supreme rule, and Dušan guaranteed autonomy, also giving a row of economic privileges, with tremendous gifts and endowments. The monks of Kalanda came at the front of the ecclesiastical community. In his codex, Dušan accentuates his role as a protector of Christianity and points out the independence of the Church. For the codex we can also see care that the parishes are equally arranged both in cities and villages. He was also taking care of few churches and monasteries from Bari to the west, to Jerusalem to the east. Besides Orthodox Christians, there were many Catholics in the empire, mostly in the coastal cities, Katero, Elgais etc. In the court of Dušan there were also Catholics. In the central parts, Saxons were in areas active in mining and trading. Catholics had the full right of faith, except for converting non-Catholics. There are no historical record that traders of Catholic faith complained about discrimination based on religion. Dušan was also in contact with the Pope. He negotiated about formal acceptance of papal primacy. His two goals were stopping Hungarian attacks in the north, and, with the help of the Pope, assemble and organize a crusade against the Turks. The Pope sent an envoy led by Peter Tome to the Serbian court. However, according to Philippe de Mézières, the negotiations were followed by much unpleasantness, and the mission did not give the expected results. Royal ideology. Some historians consider that the goal of Emperor Dušan was to establish a new Serbian Greek Empire, replacing the Byzantine Empire. Surković considered his initial ideology as that of the previous Bulgarian emperors, who had envisioned co-rulership. However, starting in 1347, relations with John VI Kantaka Uzinos worsened. Dušan allied himself with rival John V Paleologos. Dušan was the first Serbian monarch who wrote most of his letters in Greek, also signing with the imperial red ink. He was the first to publish prostagma, a kind of Byzantine document, characteristic for Byzantine rulers. In his royal title, Emperor of the Serbs and Greeks, his claim as Eastern Roman successor is clear. He also gave Byzantine court titles to his nobility, something that would continue into the 16th century. Lawmaker. The most lasting monument to Dušan's rulership was a law code. For the purposes of Dušan's code, a wealth of charters were published, and some great foreign works of law were translated to Serbian. However, the third section of the code was new and distinctively Serbian, albeit with Byzantine influence and attention to a long legal tradition in Serbia. Dušan explained the purpose of his code in one of his charters. He intimated that its aims were spiritual and that the code would help his people to save themselves for the afterlife. The code was proclaimed on the 21st of May 1349 in Skopje and contained 155 clauses, while 66 further clauses were added at Sarres in 1353 or 1354. The authors of the code are not known, but they were probably members of the court who specialized in law. Dušan's code proclaims on subjects both secular and ecclesiastic. The more so because Serbia had recently achieved full ecclesiastic autonomy as an independent Orthodox Church under a patriarchate. The first 38 clauses relate to the Church and they deal with issues that the medieval Serbian Church faced, while the next 25 clauses relate to the nobility. Civil law is largely excluded, since it was covered in earlier documents, namely St. Savos Nomicamon and in Corpus Juris Civilis. Dušan's code originally dealt with criminal law, with heavy emphasis on the concept of lawfulness, which was mostly taken directly from Byzantine law. The original manuscript of Dušan's code does not survive. The code continued as a de facto constitution under the rule of Dušan's son, Stefan Uroš IV, and after the fall of the Serbian Empire in 1371. It was used in all the successor provinces. It was officially used in the successor state, Serbian Despotate, until its annexation by the Ottoman Empire in 1459. The code was used as a reference for Serbian communities under Turkish rule, which exercised considerable legal autonomy in civil cases. The code was also used in the Serbian autonomical areas under the Republic of Venice, like Grabalj and Pastravici. It also served as the base of the Canon of Albanian Princely Kadakagwini, a set of customary laws in northern Albania that existed until the 20th century. Military tactics. Serbian military tactics consisted of wedge-shaped heavy cavalry attacks with horse archers on the flanks. Many foreign mercenaries were in the Serbian army, mostly Germans as cavalry and Spaniards as infantry. He also had personal mercenary guards, mainly German knights. A German knight named Parman became the commander of the Serbian Alemannic Guard in 1331. Upon crossing Serbia to Jerusalem, he became leader of all mercenaries in the Serbian army. The main strength of the Serbian army was the armored knight, feared for the ferocious charge and fighting skills. The Serbian expansion in the former territory of Byzantine Empire proceeded without a single major battle. It based on the blockade of Greek fortresses.